Yes. And I have not introduced Mahesh, sorry. So, sorry, Mahesh is a
I'll do
master
that.
certified
Don't
coach.
worry, Jayashree.
And he's such a frequent contributor to all our chapter initiatives that I forgot that some of you might not know him. So please, Mahesh, please introduce yourself.
Thank you so much. I'll just stay focused on what you see on the screen. Jayashree, thank you so much. And Prasad, I know you are there on the call. Awesome initiative. I can't thank you less. And I think the entire fraternity will owe a lot to you for this initiative. And from me, a deep sense of gratitude for such a wonderful process that you introduced. And we are only carrying it forward. I'll just simply stay focused on, as I said, what you see about me on the screen. A PhD in psychology, MCC, you know what it means. CDWF is I'm a certified dating way facilitator. Brené's work, based on Brené's work. Several other things which we'll not get into, which is not important right now. As of yesterday, I had an Excel sheet of 34 people who asked questions upon registration or however the process was, because I'm not privy to that. And I have some themes around which people have asked questions, yeah? But before we get in there, a simple invitation to each one of you to inhale the future without any expectation, hold the present, and exile the past without regret. And that's what coaching presents is all about. And invitation for the next 45 odd minutes that we are going to be together is hold the present in whatever form that you can. If you look at the agenda, this is primarily focused on the themes that you have initiated through your registration. And I'll share what will be the focus for the day. Coaching mindset as a competency, which we are all aware of. It's just a revision for us. And I'm going to talk about the PC approach today and a process of daily questions and coaching mindset, and a short session on biases that will come in the next session. I thought I will cram in everything, but as I was preparing, I realized that it will not be functional for all of us. It will not be meaningful. Hence, I'm going to push it there. So I'm going to end today's session with a PC approach, which is not personal computer though. It is person-centered approach of Carl Rogers. I'm a psychologist, so I'll bring in something that's from my domain, which is useful for us to apply as coaches. Yeah. So the themes, and I'm surprised so many themes emerged. Let me go back. Action planning. If there is a way to stop, log the meeting, that'll be useful, I think. Action planning, being a coach, biases, business development, coaching competency number 2, which is what today's focus is. Client resistance, coaching questions, coaching skills, what is coaching versus mentoring, dealing with emotions, fears, self-projections, and stuckness. Yeah. There are so many themes for 34 people who signed up, but yeah, what I'm going to do is just to focus on these today and in the next session. Being and biases of coaching, bias of just being in any relationship. What is this core competency all about? Some aspects of how we can deal with emotions. That's what will be covered today, and probably in the next session we'll talk more about projections, fear, and what is a model of change that we could use as a way forward. Okay. So this is what it is. Those of you who know this, it's only a revision. It's important that we take this upfront and have it at the background when we are getting into the session. develops and maintains a mindset that is open, curious, flexible, and client-centered. And that's where I picked on when it said client-centered. Rogerian theories and processes are focused on client-centered therapy, and much of what I'm going to talk about is borrowed from the client-centered processes of Rogerian methodologies. So 8 bullets under this competency of coaching mindset acknowledges that clients are responsible for their own choices, engages in ongoing learning and development as a coach, develops an ongoing reflective practice to enhance one's coaching, remains aware of and open to the influence of context and culture on self and others, uses awareness of self and one's intuition to benefit clients, develops and maintains the ability to regulate one's emotions, mentally and emotionally prepares for sessions, seeks help from outside sources when necessary. Yeah. All of these 8 bullets. I will be focusing on the first one, a reflective practice, being open to influence, developing the ability to regulate emotions and become aware of emotions. Even if I am not able to regulate at this point of time, at least start beginning to become aware of emotions, and then we will move into that. Jayashree, each of these bullets is worth one session. So I don't know how we'll handle this in future, but we'll need to really do a deep dive, because this is going to be a backbone of the entire coaching process as we go forward from 2021. Yes. So probably you, Prasad, and me, and several others in the group need to really work on this competency continuously. There is no one-time input on this. It's a continuous process. And that's why it says ongoing learning. And that's what is critical for all of us. So let's be mindful of that. So these are the things that are included in this. This is pulled out of Code of Ethics from the earlier process, earlier sessions, earlier list of competencies. And having said this, there are some lessons for coaching which I recognize we can draw from the person-centered psychology approach of Carl Rogers. And some insights for this. There are 3 things that seem to be important. One is the communication styles. It talks about a continuum of communication, which I'll share. Then there are stages of change that I'm not going to talk this time, and some pillars of conversation. This is what we will be looking at today. Yeah, at the core of these of person-centered approach are these 3 pillars. And what I'm trying to do here is I've really picked on from the person-centered approach to be able to see how we can be mindful of co-creating, being focused on what the client is looking for, and understanding that client has all the wisdom to be able to work his way around. And you will see glimpses of all this as we go through the presentation. And Jayashree, I'm okay to take questions as we progress into the presentation.
Yes, please. Yes.
Yeah. So the first one is where we begin is directing. This is one way how person-centered approach looks at communication continuum. Slightly different from how we do it. Then the second is guiding, which is in the middle, and following is the last one. If you look at these 3 slightly in little more details, which I'll not getting into again. This is not a teaching session, but it's only a session where we are trying to get a hang of what this competency is vis-a-vis the person-centered approach of psychology. So directing, there is a lot of information, sharing, instruction, and advice So this is not a style that would typically be a coaching style. So when we say coaching mindset, we need to be aware. Ongoing learning and reflective process is about being aware of what kind of communication style am I implementing, am I using, am I applying in my conversation. And to be aware of that is itself is a big leap. So am I just asking for information, just instructing the client, or just advising based on my expert? So one of the traps is expert trap that we all talk about. From where comes the advisory? So that is something I invite you to pay attention to as we get into the communication styles continuum. The second one is, I'll come back on the second one afterwards. Following is the third one, where you're following your client, you're listening, there is understanding, and there is respect. And you'll see these elements coming up again and again in the person-centered approach. And Carl Rogers really is looking at, I think he was far ahead of his times in terms of looking at positive psychology. So he was always, and he was not so much focused on fixing things. And you will see some of that displayed here. And what is the message that following really talks about? The communication style here is, I trust your wisdom, will stay with you and let you work this out in your own way. That is the philosophy behind following. And so pay attention to when you're having this conversation with your client, what is the position you're taking? What is the style that you are implementing? What is the style you're most comfortable with? And that's where ongoing learning really comes into play for coaching mindset. Yeah. And so guiding is in the middle, which is not too much or too little. Yeah. So there are times when clients keep asking for advice. In your experience, what was it like? Yeah, that's when I probably will share some experience, but otherwise that is something I'll always keep away from. So following seems to be, from the person-centered approach, the most closest to how we can be in the coaching communication with our clients. All right, I have finished one part of it. If you have any questions, I'm willing to take that, Jayashree, right now.
So Mahesh, even before others ask, my request to you is if you could talk a little bit more about Carl Rogers, because I'm personally a fan, and when I read his On Becoming a Person, I thought here is a person who's actually, his therapy is going so much towards coaching.
Yes.
And those boundaries are getting blurred between therapy and coaching. So personally I'm a fan, but I don't know how much other people also know. So it will be great.
It's Jayashree, allow me to do this, but at this point of time, it's not so much important to know about Carl Rogers. Just it is good enough to know, because I'm trusting the wisdom of each one of you on the call, that those who are interested will go out, reach out, and read about it. Yeah, that's more functional in this context. Yeah.
Fair.
Yeah, because what should I talk about Carl Rogers? I mean, there's too much to talk. So I'm just saying that his focus was on client-centered process. And that's where I got excited about. And when I'm actually looking at the bullets of the definition, under the definition for this core competency, they seem to have been borrowed from Rogerian principles. Yeah, most of them. So if you're looking at those 8 bullets, that itself will speak a lot about Rogerian processes. But yes, if the group is interested, we can talk about Rogerian methodology later. Are you okay with that, Jayashree?
Thank you. Yes.
Thanks. Good to move on.
Yes, please.
And I'm calling this pillars of conversation. They call it philosophical foundations and different nomenclature. So there are 4 things that I have bumped into in the Rogerian processes. The first one being partnership, acceptance, there's compassion, and evocation. So in the therapeutic processes, they are talking about these three pillars, four pillars. And if you look at each of these, they're having a lot of insight for us to be able to move into powerful coaching. So when you're talking about partnership, what is it? It is something that is done for and with the person. It's not about me again. So whose agenda? We keep talking about this. Positive atmosphere is something that we need to create in that conversation, which is conducive to change, but is not coercive in nature. Yeah. So if you're looking at the previous slide, let me go back to that once. It says, we'll stay with you and let you work this out in your way. And when I'm extending this to partnership, it is more like dancing versus wrestling. I'm not fighting with the client. I'm wanting to be in the flow so that I can move and figure out. And and going ahead, I'm willing to explore the client's perspective. I wouldn't know what is the next move of the client if I'm not dancing and moving with the client. If I'm fighting, wrestling with the client, I'm always trying to be one up man. And that's the shift that we are really looking at when we're doing coaching. And second one is acceptance, which is defined as, under 4 parameters. And I'll share a little more with you on this as we move to the next section. And it comprises of absolute worth, accurate empathy, autonomy support, and affirmation. And there is a beautiful invitation that we can move into a process where we can enhance our acceptance. And I always keep saying this in my coaching conversations, in my coach training programs, that, and I use a model of awareness, acceptance, and action, a simple model. And I say, our brain is programmed so well and it's goddamn smart that it can understand very fast, lightning speeds. And understanding is not enough for change to happen, for action. So I tend to move from head, heart, and gut. That is the direction I take, multiple brain intelligences. And this is 99%. It understands 100%. I will take an example of weight reduction. All the newer resolutions. I understand that. I'm overweight. I have cholesterol. I'm diabetic. Yeah. So I don't wake up fresh in the morning. I know all this. My brain understands this. My mind understands this. It's a different debate people will have about mind and brain. I'm using it interchangeably, please. So this understands it. But unless it reaches 12 inches below or 10 inches below, I don't know, depending on the height, to the heart, where there is more acceptance, it doesn't move into action. And when I generally quiz people, and I would want to invite each one of you to actually put it in the chat box, if that is possible, Jayashree. If you look at head, heart, and gut as the 3 components, or if you, and I extend this to awareness, acceptance, and action as a model. If you look at these 3 components, if you can just quickly distribute 100% across these 3 in terms of their importance for change to happen, how would you distribute this 100%? I would do 33, 33, 33, safe. Yeah, you can just put it on the chat. I don't want you to think too much. Just put down what comes first to your mind. Where is the chat? Yes, I can see the chat. Yeah, 20, 30, 50, 10, 60, 40. 40, 30, 30. I'm just reading 30, 30, 40, 50, 30, 20. Go ahead, go ahead. I'm not going to read the names, so don't worry. Yeah, 20, 40, 40, 30, 50, 20, 50, 20, 30, 20, 40, 40. Great. I'm getting a sense of what the group is thinking about. There is a group think here. And I've seen in my own experience as a coach, especially the CXO, CEO level, what I saw and seems to be working. Yeah, 40, 70, 10 doesn't add up to 100, please. So it has to be 100. What seems to be really powerful in the process of change is about 30% for awareness and 1% for action. Yeah, and the balance seems to be really focused on acceptance, because this distance is the most difficult to travel. And once it reaches acceptance, action is more or less automatic. And person-centered approach seems to have offered us a lot of insights for that component of change to happen very powerfully. Yeah. So let's explore this a little more. Let me also keep a tab on the clock. Right. So third one is compassion. This has been added in the recent times when there's a lot of research that came up from especially the social worker fraternities, social work. Yeah, a lot of social work researchers have talked about compassion because that's where they're using it more. They saw results of that, and this got included in the recent times. It's not suffering with the other, but it means giving priority to needs of self and others. Probably it is others first and self later. But in my experience, if I am not compassionate, if I'm not self-compassion, don't show self-compassion, I'm not caring enough for myself. And if I don't know how to care for myself, caring for others really becomes challenging. So having your heart in place, in the right place, they say. So there's a lot of interconnectedness of all these components that we are seeing. As you hear this, when partnership, when there is dance, there is compassion for self and others, and your heart is in place, so there is more acceptance. And when these three things are happening, there is evocation, where the focus is on client strengths and resources. One of the metaphors, and I love metaphors, so dance versus wrestling and drawing water from the well. So you're just helping your client to draw his own water. Yeah. And you're being mindful of client strengths and resources. And that's what we have been talking about in coaching. The client's resourcefulness is what we always talk about. So these are the pillars which seem to be really powerfully embedded in the coaching mindset, so to say. Any questions so far? Any thoughts? Anything that's coming up? You can unmute yourself, ask, comment. Typically, I wait for 30 seconds before I move on. Okay, so I shall move on. So one is this pillars of conversation. Then we have, once we become aware of this, I'm also talking about acceptance in a little more detail. And I'm showing you, these are all fictitious figures, so don't worry about the amount in the bar charts. So if you're looking at these four on the x-axis and see how They are distributed. This is one of ongoing learning that we can engage, reflective learning that we can engage in as coaches as a part of coaching mindset. So what amount of absolute worth am I really bringing into my conversation? And how much of accurate empathy am I bringing into this conversation? Autonomy. How much of autonomy support am I doing for the client? And affirmation. These are the four elements that form a part of acceptance. And I believe that the effective interplay between all components is what sets us apart from others as effective coaches. Where am I? We are not God's gift to mankind. All of us come with our own limitations. Yeah, self-limiting beliefs are something for another conversation. So when we know this, when we become aware of that, am I focusing on these components of acceptance, which help me move into deeper relationship with the client so that I can do the work with the client? Yeah. So how are my bar charts month on month? We can figure out. Right? And you don't need an expert. You don't need an outsider to tell you where you are on these components. Yeah. Again, the thought behind this is we have the wisdom to explore what is it for us. Yeah, we have the resources and wisdom to be able to identify where am I on this so that I can move on. So month on month, year on year, you can focus on an aspect of how am I showing up my accurate empathy? How am I showing my support for autonomy? And what is coming in the way? Because this is the process of self-coaching, so to say. And I strongly believe that it is a brilliant move by ICF to bring up this competency so that we are always growing. It is included in the process of coaching itself so that you don't have to depend on others for your growth. You can seek help, of course. But if you're staying focused on core competency 2, as it is in the new model, a lot of shift will happen for us as coaches, is my thinking. So what are these 4 components? I'll spend a little more time exploring these components. Yeah. Absolute worth, what Rogerian processes calls is non-possessive caring, or this is where this is my USP from Carl Rogers, Jayashree have been asking me about it. This is the unconditional positive regard. I believe this is the crux of positive psychology that we see today. And where is that paper of mine? Yeah. There's a concept called as mention build. That's what is written. This is a German word, if I'm not mistaken, which speaks about the basic human nature. And Rogerian principles talk about moving into self-actualization. That is the way of being as humans in that space of self-actualization. It is the ability to see the person as he is, as they call it. And the focus is on respect. It implies absence of exploitation. So when you're looking at these 4 components, please explore. In what ways can I demonstrate respect for the other person, respect for myself? And am I demonstrating anything that tells me that I'm in the space of exploiting? So absence of exploitation is a space that will allow our client to build more trust with us, which will fall into the other competencies that follow. So when I'm unaccepting of myself, I'm immobilized. So unconditional positive regard, what does it do for me as a client? It allows me to accept myself the way I am, the way I show up. And this frees me up to do the work I need to do. And if I'm not accepting, if I'm not getting that space to create that, then I get immobilized. I'm not even looking for options. I don't even, that's where stuckness, resistance, people, you have asked about resistance. This is where resistance comes in. The second one, accurate empathy, is an active interest in and effort to understand others' internal perspective. There is also a word, internal private perspective is what Roger says. And that is what is accurate empathy. It is not about sharing, when clients talk about, when clients have an emotional breakdown, we also talked about emotions, managing emotions and regulating emotions as a theme in your questions. So when client has overpowering emotions, there is transference for us. Yeah. And many of us, at least I used to do initially, to talk about, yes, I know how it feels. I've been there. I've seen that, done it. That's not what the client wants to hear. It is the ability to understand the client's frame of reference, and that it is worthwhile to understand the client's reference. So respect and worthiness is what really matters for the client. Am I being seen as a worthy person to be engaged in a conversation with me is what the client is looking for. And to sense the client's inner world of personal meaning as it were your own, but without ever losing the as if quality. That is the key. Accurate empathy happens when you're seeing it as if it were yours, but not losing the essence of subject-object relationship. And that's beautifully explained by Roger. And the third one, autonomy support, is respecting each individual's, in this case, the client's irrevocable right and capacity of self-direction. And that beautifully fits into the coaching conversations. So basic human nature is positive, forward-moving, constructive, realistic, and trustworthy. This is the quote from Roger. Basic human nature is positive, forward-moving, constructive, realistic, and trustworthy. Look how much of coaching is already recommended in the person-centered approach. And autonomy also means acknowledging freedom of choice. And this acknowledgement diminishes defensiveness and facilitates change. So see how it is forward-looking even in 1940s, 50s. The last component of acceptance is affirmation, which is to seek and acknowledge others' strengths and efforts. Yeah, it's an intentional way of being and communicating. One of the things that we hear in coaching conversations is, oh, you have put in a lot of effort into what you have done and where you have shifted. Is that affirmation, acknowledgement, and I see you have a strength in this place. Can I invite you into exploring how you could use that strength? Is an affirmation. So these are different possibilities that we have in the person-centered approach to be able to grab and start applying for coaching conversations. Any questions here? Any thoughts? Anything that's coming up?
I would really encourage people, please ask questions, because these are
your
like
questions.
amazing.
This is based. This presentation is based on your questions.
Correct.
Yeah. So if you have something to ask, if they are getting answered, I'm happy.
Mahesh, you're very good. We just trying to absorb this. It's yeah, yeah. I mean, it's heavy, at least for me,
Okay,
but it's making a lot of sense, and I mean, it's basically making me a little dumbfounded here. So
that is not the intention, Anil.
no, no, but it's so good and so much of information there. Maybe you should. I would want to know more about affirmation because even the slide doesn't talk much.
Yeah.
So yeah.
Uh, Mahesh, this is Vinay here. Can I ask a question, please?
Yes, you may.
Uh, Mahesh, I am talking about the point two, the four components, the component two that is accurate empathy. And there, if we go down the bullet points, the third bullet point, to sense the client's inner world of personal meaning
Mm,
as it were your own,
mm.
but without ever losing the as if quality. It's beautifully said. I absolutely agree with you. The third bullet point, does it mean that the connection between you and the client is actually being to being, right?
Sorry, the connection
The
is.
connection between, during the conversation process, listening process, the connection between you as a coach,
Mhm.
the client is actually being to being, which means that what he or she is saying, the client is saying, the connection is so strong as if it is you who's coming out from there.
Yes.
If that kind of a depth is there in this,
Yeah.
I think the accurate empathy is fully justified. Am I correct in my understanding?
Absolutely. Bang on.
Thank you. Thank you.
Mahesh, my question on the same point that Vinay sir asked, how do you do it? How does one do it? So understanding the concept is one, but when you are right there in a coaching session, how do you really do it? The subject-object, distinction, maintain that and yet be there.
Yeah. I'm understanding your difficulty in making that distinction between subject and object, and at the same time
Yes.
dancing together.
Yes. Yes.
Yeah.
I think Mahesh, sorry for interruption. I would say that I think that's a very valid question which Jayashree asked.
Can I hold on, Vinay?
Oh,
Hold you for a moment.
yeah. Please go ahead. Please go ahead. Sorry. Yeah.
So that's what I'm sensing from you, Jayashree.
Yes.
Yeah. I actually demonstrated it to you.
Right. Got it. Yeah.
Yeah, because there could be infinite number of ways in which I can be as if with Jayashree moment to moment.
Right.
But am I being there in an unconditional positive regard so that I'm able to see as she's seeing it?
Right.
Thank you for allowing me to do that, Jayashree.
Thank you. Thank you.
I have a question, Mahesh, if I may ask.
Can I go to Vinay and come back to you, Sushma? Is that okay?
Okay, sure. Yeah, sure.
All right.
Absolutely. Yeah.
Yes, Vinay.
Thank you, Mahesh. So I think the question which Jayashree asked was extremely valid. My answer to that would be that as a coach, I think is quality of your presence and deeper listening would probably meet the requirement of the third bullet point.
Yes, it will. Completely with you on that.
Yeah.
Yes, Sushma.
Yeah. So I was wanting to question on point number 3, the second bullet point, acknowledging freedom of choice diminishes defensiveness and facilitates change. Perfect. But in a coaching conversation, is it to be acknowledged in a, what should I say, in an overt way? Do we need to grow into being able to, into having a freedom of choice, which anyway, diminishes defensiveness? how does it actually play out?
What is that you want to ask? Because you've asked so much.
No, I want to ask is that what I want to ask is, in a coaching session, how do you acknowledge the last point? Acknowledging freedom of choice will diminish defensiveness, both for the coachee and the coach, right?
Yes.
For both. For both.
Yes.
Right. So,
Sushma,
yeah.
Go ahead. I thought you're done. That's
So
why.
yes. So I was just wondering that how does one really acknowledge this freedom of choice in the coaching conversation?
Are you done with the question?
Yes.
So actually, again, I demonstrated that. I asked you, what is that you want to ask? I could have assumed that you wanted to ask this.
Okay.
Yeah, that is acknowledging and offering you that freedom of choice to ask what you are thinking, what you're feeling about it. And there is always a tendency. That's where we go up, neck up is an easy position to be. I would have made a summary of what you asked, then say, okay, Sushma, is this what you want to know? Or is this what you're wanting to ask? That, yeah, I didn't go there. So what is that you want to ask? I opened up the choice for you.
Mahesh, if Sushma is done, then can I ask the same?
Yeah.
Okay.
I'm done.
And those of you who are asking and commenting, please come on video. Otherwise, it seems I'm just speaking to the screen. Thank you. Give me a minute. Yes, Vinay. Can you come on the
Yes.
screen?
Yes. So what I was saying on the same point as Sushma raised was that during this conversation process, if ever the coach client feels that the freedom of choice is not there with him, then it would diminish he will get into a defensive mode.
Yes.
And if that happens, then the change is difficult to happen.
I agree.
So that is what I am understanding from this point.
Yes.
That freedom of choice for any kind of decision making has to be with the clients. He has to be free on that.
So Vinay, extending this based on what Sushma and you said, so that is the space where I am, and I'm having active interest in what the client is perceiving in the moment.
Sure.
And I say, Vinay, I sense that you're experiencing a lack of freedom of choice in what you're dealing with.
Absolutely. Yeah.
I say, what do you want to do with that?
Sure.
Yeah, that's the space I'll move into. Right?
Yeah.
Anything else? Anybody wants to make a comment? Thank you, Vinay, Anil, Sushma.
Manish, can I make a comment here?
Yes, Nimesh.
So I'm referring to your point number 2 of accurate empathy. An interesting point, number 1, that is not sharing. I have been there and done that. While I completely agree with this point, the interesting dilemma that I face, and I'm sure some of the other coaches face as well, is that this is precisely what the client looks in me to engage me as a coach. And it's an interesting tug of war, because unless I've been there and done that, I don't get the assignment. And once I get the assignment, I'm not supposed to bring in this. I just wanted to kind of bring that internal dilemma that surfaced here.
That, as I hear you, Nimesh, that is your frame of reference for coaching. That is your current frame of reference. Yeah. And I'm understanding your frame of reference, where you're coming from. What do you want to do with that?
And I am sensing the approach that you're using in this conversation, and I'm liking it completely. So here I'm simply wanting to highlight this as a dilemma, not very clearly, not consciously not falling for it. As I started with the sentence that I completely agree with, not sharing, I've been there and done that. It's just that the selection process has interesting divergence as of now.
Yes, you have a frame of reference there, and again the same question: what do you do? What do you want to do with that frame of reference you have?
Well, as of now, I'm living with it.
Wonderful. Can I move on, Nimesh?
Mahesh?
Yeah.
Mahesh?
Yes, Anil.
Just wanted to make a comment, and I think when you say acknowledging freedom of choice, I think does empower the client.
Yeah.
To take actions, and that will facilitate the change. So if you don't have a freedom of choice, an individual actually feels powerless.
Agree.
Yeah. Thanks.
Thank you. Shall we move on?
Yes, please.
Yeah. Yeah, we have 10 more minutes as with my clock. So let me see what else is there. And I don't think there is anything more after this. Yeah.
Okay.
But in the spirit of this, I would like to read out a short poem by one of the therapists, clinical psychologist, William Miller. And I love this. It's not a big name, but not a known person, but I picked it up from one of his writings. And I feel this is a useful invitation for all of us to get into. And he's talking about a female client, so you'll hear reference to the gender, female gender. So guide me to be a patient companion, to listen with a heart as open as the sky. Give me vision to see through her eyes and eager ears to hear her story. Create a safe and open mesa on which we may walk together. Make me a clear pool in which she may reflect. Guide me to find in her your beauty and wisdom, knowing your desire for her to be in harmony, healthy, loving, and strong. Let me honor and respect her choosing of her own path and bless her to walk it freely. May I know, once again, that although she and I are different, yet there is a peaceful place where we are one. Yeah.
Wow.
So all that I've been talking about is summed up in this little poem that Miller has created, and awesome. So are we having any more questions? So there's a lot you can do with these principles and foundations. We will discuss about the change model that the person-centered approach brings in and offers for us to use as coaches, and build on working with that model next time. And I will also talk about more about biases and how we become more mindful, aware, and some of these principles will actually move us into that space of becoming more aware of my own emotional responses and biases to what is going on. So if I'm really focused on these 4 principles of acceptance, there's a lot that can shift for us as coaches. Yeah. So this is on being a coach. It is the distinction between being and doing. And if you're just being what it is, you don't have to do anything. Thank you, the group, and Jayashree and the rest of you who are there on the call.
Mahesh, if you could stop sharing, I'm requesting Aniruddha to take a screenshot, and we'll request people to come on video. Aniruddha, possible? Huh?
Actually, I got disconnected earlier from network and hence I have logged in from mobile. So it is
Okay,
difficult
so
for
not
me.
possible. Is it possible for
Maybe if you
anyone
give
else?
maybe
Renuka? Sorry.
few seconds, then I'll log into my desktop and then I can do it.
No, I think someone else also can do it. Rohit, will you help us? Rohit Dev, will you help us? You are on mute.
Yes, ma'am.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Okay.
There is somebody who calls me ma'am. I'm very happy. Please come on video. Please come on video and give you a big smile, but then there will
Yes,
always
ma'am.
be space.
We'll all smile for you.
And Rohit, tell us.
रोहित,
Yes.
जब क्लिक करने से पहले बोलो, नहीं तो इतनी देर हम ऐसे ही बैठेंगे.
3, 2, 1, go.
Done.
Oh, Aisa Kotolia. Oh, okay. Oh, good to see you, Pallavi. Any parting questions, any comments, any feedback, any takeaways that you are taking from this session with you? Please feel free to share. We are going to have the continuation of this session on the first Thursday of November once again, because I think, Mahesh, all of us are, at least I am impressed by that clear pool in that poem. And the biases and the judgments, I think they seem to be the ones that, kind of, they I think meddle with that clarity of the pool. That's the metaphor that's coming to my mind.
Absolutely.
People, please go ahead and your feedback.
Yeah.
Any questions, any takeaways, please.
Great session. Lots of good stuff. Thank you, Mahesh.
Thanks, Raman.
Hey, thank you, Mahesh. Great session.
Mahesh, this is Vinay here. Oh, sorry. Yeah. Somebody is asking a question. Yeah.
No, I just said thanks, Mahesh. It was a great session. That's not asking questions.
Thanks,
Okay. Mahesh, my point was that I take it the next time again you are coming. It's a wonderful session, very, very insightful. The next month when you are again coming back to us, I would like some sort of the point which Jayashree also raised. It's a very interesting area. You know, that gray zone between the coaching and therapy. I think as coaches, we are not experts in psychoanalytic kind of assessment, which hallmark of therapy. So, and many coaches, when they are moving into that gray zone area, it's difficult to analyze as to at what stage they must stop, because coach's job is to, if you find there's a crying and there's a extreme anger and there's repentance and all that on part of the client, then the coach's option is to refer. Many coaches try and probably move further and cross the line. Where should one stop?
I'll do a quick response to this, Vinay, and the rest of the people on the group. First thing is, most training schools would have addressed this in their training itself, where to draw the line. Yeah. And 2, crying or breaking down in the session doesn't necessarily warrant for a therapy or a referral. Yeah. So catharsis doesn't mean therapy. That's the second point. And the third point, this topic is beyond the scope of the current assignment that Jayashree downloaded to me. So it is,
I thought it
like out of syllabus question, yeah. So, but yes, I'm willing to deal with it later.
Okay, fair enough.
Also, yeah, thanks, Mahesh. And also the 17th October chapter session, which Paras will anchor, is actually dedicated to this topic. So
Great.
I think that the topic is titled Coaching and Therapy, Drawing Boundaries and Building Bridges.
There you go. You saved my day.
Okay.
So please, yeah, so that's on 17th October anyway. So all of you who are present on the call, you are most welcome to join that session too.
And this, it is very tricky. Somebody who is like me or Jayashree or trained in psychology, there is always a temptation to, cross that thin line. And it can be very dangerous.
Dangerous, yeah, that's what I thought.
True.
Yes, somebody else put up their hand or?
I said, Mahesh, you said two different things in a few minutes. One is that breaking down and catharsis doesn't necessarily mean calling in a therapist. And now you said there's a very thin line, which psychologists like me and Jayashree know.
Yes, and I'm completely aware of that. And I stop there and say, look, this warrants some kind of a therapy, because this is not the time to share cases where I pushed away the client to a therapist, because there's a lot of going back. There's a lot of going back into the past, what happened, and this is what happened to me, this is what happened to me. It's always going back. And that's when I stop and say, look, coaching is about moving forward. What is the choice you have?
That's a little bit more detailed explanation. So it's not just a catharsis and a breaking down, which is enough to, but if it's a sustained discussion of the past and so on, that perhaps is a stronger indication.
And one event, one reference to past is not, again, doesn't warrant. So I always give a metaphor of driving. When you're driving, you only have rear view mirrors. इतना ही होता है, छोटे होते हैं.
Nice one.
So you only need to see so much that you don't bump into others, or others are not bumping into you. That's all. But what is important is your dashboard ki aage kya ho raha hai? What is that? Where am I moving to? What choices do I have?
Much bigger windscreen.
Yeah.
Very good. Very good.
Absolutely.
Wonderful. Absolutely.
Okay, Jayashree.
Hey,
Thank
you.
One last question. I missed the poem that you shared. I had a bad connection. Is it? Can I take a minute for you to repeat it, please?
I will. It's a beautiful one. I don't mind repeating it.
I'm sorry, not wanting to hold up others. I apologize, but just want.
Yeah, those of you who want to leave may leave. That's fine. Guide me to be a patient companion, to listen with a heart as open as the sky. Grant me vision to see through her eyes and eager ears to hear her story. Create a safe and open mesa on which we may walk together.
Sorry, create a safe and open
mesa on which we may walk together.
Together, yeah.
Make me a clear pool in which she may reflect. Guide me to find in her your beauty and wisdom, knowing your desire for her to be in harmony, healthy, loving, and strong. Let me honor and respect her choosing of her own path and bless her to walk it freely. May I know once again that although she and I are different, yet there is a peaceful place where we are one.
Wow. Incredible. And who's the writer?
This is a therapist I mentioned by the name Miller.
Miller, M-I-L-L-E-R?
Yeah.
Okay.
Thank you so much, Mahesh.
Right.
Really.
Thank you. Thanks, Mahesh. Thanks. And thanks all of you.
Thank you.
Thank you. Thanks a lot.
Wonderful
Thanks.
session.
Thank you,
Bye.
Mahesh. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you.